Good afternoon, Reading Room. This is Dr. Annette Feravich, and we are here for conversations on common things. Dorothea Dix's book that she taught with as a science class way back in the mid 1800s. So it really does have a lot of good information as far as science that we seem to have totally abandoned or not made available so that we could what? I don't know. Make ammunition. I don't know. Since that's what it has a lot to do with. There's surprisingly, percentage-wise, how much we know about ammunition. It's October 2nd right there. Look at the cute animals and the pretty flowers. Oh, Lucy thinks I'm talking to her. You too, honey. You too. It is day 254 in the classroom. Let's get up close and personal to our little sign since we haven't. And then let's go ahead and get started. We are on chapter number 25. We will go through chapter number 27 in our book. Conversation 25. Daughter, look, mother, I have found some descriptive verses in one of Henry's book. I will read them to you and will thank you to explain the meaning of the last verse but one. I understand the others, but should like to know some of the camel, hyena, and locust. First, read your verses. O'er Arabia's desert sands, the patient camel walks, mid lonely caves and rocky lands, the fell hyena stalks. On her cool and shady hills, coffee shrubs and tamarinds grow. Headlong fall the welcome rills, down the fruitful dells below. The fragrant myrrh and healing balm perfume and passing gale, thick hung with dates, the spreading palm, or towers the peopled vale. Locusts off a living cloud hover in the darkened air, like a torrent dashing loud, bring famine and despair. And often o'er the level waste, the stifling hot winds fly, down falls the swain with trembling haste. The gasping cattle dies. Shepherd people on the plain pitch their tents and wander free. Wealthy cities they disdain, poor yet blessed with liberty. The verse of which you wish to explain refers to a poisonous wind which blows in Arabia at some seasons called Samiel. If breathed, it produces immediate death. What? People cannot see wind, mother. How can they avoid breathing it? Camels seem by instinct to know when it is approaching and plunge their noses into the sand till it has passed, which is commonly in a few minutes. Now the Arabs never travel in the deserts without camels, and warned by them of the approaching danger, and also by yellow or brassy appearance in the air, they avoid it, as says the verse, by falling to the earth and covering their faces closely. Death would be the consequence of neglecting this precaution. And does the wind blow in all parts of Arabia? I should not like to live there at all. No, it blows only in the sand deserts, which are mostly uninhabited. Merchants must cross them with their camels and merchandise in their progress from one part of the country to another, and it is to them it sometimes proves so fatal. Is the camel mother remarkable for any very useful qualities? I will describe it and leave you to decide that. The camel is an animal supplying to its owners the place both of horses, cows, and sheep. Its milk is the chief food of the roving Arabs. Its patience and strength are very great. It kneels to receive its load and will carry several hundred weight on its back. The camel will live several days without either food or water. Nature has provided it with the reservoir in which part of the water which the camel drinks remains fresh and pure. This he forces into his throat and stomach by contracting the muscles of the bag which contains it. The camel is about 6 feet high and of a heavy, clumsy form, but will travel with great speed when not heavily loaded. When he is burthened with a large load, he goes but 30 or 35 miles a day. But what renders the appearance of this animal singular and deformed is a hump upon its back. In this only it differs from the dromedary, which has two. The camel is confined to Arabia, the Barbary states, Persia, and countries bordering on the Levant. But the dromedary is found not only in these countries, but in South Africa, Tartary, and many parts of India. It is not quite so large as a camel, but is swifter and equally useful in other respects. The camel arrives at the age of 40 or 50 years. Though a native of warm climates, it dreads those which are excessively hot. What is the color of the camel, mother? Camel! A sort of dusky red. Its hair is several inches in length and much longer on some parts of the body than others. It falls entirely off in the spring and is succeeded by a new coat or fleece. Is not the hair of camels manufactured into shawls? Yes, the finest is put to that use, but the coarser is manufactured into stuffs which are used for various purposes by the Eastern nations. We read that John the Baptist was clothed in the raiment of camel's hair when he was preaching in the wilderness of Judea. Isn't that the word that's in the scripture? Raiment? I'm pretty sure it is. Painters use pencils made of camel's hair to lay on their paints. Well, mother, I think the camel is a remarkable animal. Can you tell me in what respects? For its docility, its strength, and its usefulness. Let me see. It carries burdens like the horse and mule. It affords milk like the cow and goat. Its hair, like the wool of sheep, is made into cloth, and it can live longer without food than either of them. But is there any other animal so useful in all respects to any nation as the camel is to the Arabian? Why, yes, I think we can find one. Try if you cannot recollect. The horse is not, mother, nor the elephant, nor any animal that I can now remember. Did you ever read of the Lapland reindeer? Oh, I do not know how I could forget that. The reindeer is very useful to its master, but is it as useful as a camel? In the first place, the reindeer travels with great swiftness, and it is said to go 50 miles without resting, and if urged, nearly 100 in a day, though such labor disables him from future service. His skin affords the Lapland clothing and beds for himself and family. His flesh and milk supply him with food. His tendons and sinews are converted into bowstrings, nets, and thread for sewing. His horns are sold for making glue, and he gives his master no trouble to prepare him food. I have sinew thread, which is waxed, but it is, from what I understand, it's synthetic. His horns are sold for making glue, and he gives his master no trouble to prepare him food, for he subsists upon a sort of white moss, which in winter he seeks under the snow. In fine, the Laplander is absolutely dependent upon his reindeer for nearly every comfort. In fine, the Laplander is absolutely dependent upon his reindeer for nearly every comfort. His reindeer form his riches, these his tents, his robes, his beds, and all his homely wealth, supply his wholesome fare and cheerful cups, obsequious at his call. The docile tribe yield to the sledge their necks, and whirl them swift o'er hill and dale, heaped into one expanse of marble snow as far as eye can sweep, with the blue crest of ice abounded glazed. No comprendo there. But thanks for sharing, for sure. I like poems. The reindeer is wild in North America, where it is called caribou. It is found in Spitsbergen and Greenland, and is seen in the northern parts of Asia as far as Kamchatka. I acknowledge that the reindeer is, if possible, even more useful to the Laplander than is the camel to the Arab. What, my dear, is your next inquiry? I wish to know what sort of animal is the hyena. It is the fiercest and most disgusting of all animals, the most savage and the most untamable. It is constantly growling, except when receiving its food. There are two species of this animal, the striped and the spotted. The former is about 3 feet and a half in length, and its hair of a dirty gray color. Its eyes constantly glisten, and the bristles of its back stand upright, giving it somewhat the appearance of a hog. Its howl is loud and most terrific. Though little above the size of a large dog, it will defend itself against the lion, fearlessly attack every other animal. I hope we have none of them in this country. No, they are natives of Asiatic Turkey, Syria, Persia, and Barbary. These animals inhabit the wildest and most desolate places, infesting the caverns of mountains and holes and dens which it digs in the earth. The spotted hyena is a native of the Cape of Good Hope, and there is called the tiger wolf. Its color is a reddish brown. Its howl is said to be very loud and dreadful beyond description. In short, the hyena is the most useless and offensive of all animals. That's interesting, isn't it? The persevering traveler Belzani saw one of these terrific beasts in Egypt near the famous Lake Moeris, and apprehended an attack from him, but the noise made by the boatman probably frightened the creature, for he fled after giving a hideous roar. I shall be contented with seeing the picture of this animal without any desire of beholding it in reality. One can neither love it for any good quality nor admire it for beauty. I do not even like to think of it, mother. So pray tell me of the locust which darkens the air like a cloud. The common brown locust is about 3 inches in length and resembles the grasshopper both in form and appearance. After a mild winter, swarms of these insects produced in the desert of Arabia overspread Syria. Every species of vegetation disappears before them. The hope of the inhabitants then lies in a bird called Paminar, which devours them, and the southeast wind, which drives them into the waters of the Mediterranean. Swarms of locusts infest many parts of Africa, particularly Barbary. They migrate to other countries, and whenever they go, mark their path with desolation. Not a leaf nor blade of grass escapes them. Famine is sometimes the consequence of their ravages. In the north of Africa, they generally make their appearance the last of March or the beginning of April, and often in such swarms as to obscure the light of the sun. Some nations eat these insects cooked in various ways, though by us they would not be considered very palatable food. There are many species of locusts. I suppose those you have described were the kind sent upon England in the time of Moses. No wonder Pharaoh promised to let the children of Israel go after his land had been and people had suffered so much from their ravages. I read the chapter which relates to these facts yesterday morning, and shall remember it the longer from what you have told me this evening of the locusts. It was indeed these destructive insects that laid waste every herb and green thing in the land of Egypt. I can converse with you no longer this evening, so you may amuse yourself with joining your dissected maps. Thank you, Mother. I will put them together and find the Barbary states. Practical questions. What is the semele and the consequences of breathing it? How may it be avoided? Describe the camel and its uses. In what countries is it found? Describe the reindeer and its uses. What is said of the hyena and where is it found? What is said of the locust? Conversation number 26. Hey, honey mother, I have been going to ask you 20 times about honey. I suppose, my dear, you wish to know what countries yield it and the method of procuring it. Yes, mother. Honey is the produce of bees, which thrive in almost every hot and temperate climate, and in some cold ones. But the greatest abundance of honey is produced in Palestine and in southern countries of Europe. The bees are sometimes swarmed or collected in hives, but they are usually what is called wild, making their honey in the clefts of rocks and the hollows of trees. This the inhabitants collect without much trouble, and all they do not use themselves, they separate from the wax and export to those countries where it is less plenty. Mead, a pleasant kind of wine, is made from honey. The beverage called metheglin is also obtained from it. I know the bees collect honey from flowers, but I cannot imagine how they get wax to form their neat little cells. It was for a long time supposed that they made their wax from the powder or pollen of flowers. This supposed fact has been disproven by many naturalists, and it is now satisfactorily ascertained that it is emitted from the body of this little creature. Wax is in some countries a staple article of commerce. What are the uses? It has many. Great quantities are consumed in the making of candles. It is also made in various figures imitating persons, fruits, flowers, animals, etc. Wax is yellow. I never saw yellow candles, therefore. I suppose we do not burn wax candles here. You are mistaken. Wax candles are burnt in our drawing rooms, but the wax is bleached previous to its use. How is that done, Mother? I must inform you that when the bees first construct their cells, the wax is white, but after remaining so a short time turns yellow. To remove this color and fit it for making candles, etc., it is cut into small pieces and melted in a copper cauldron with the addition of sufficient water to keep the wax from burning. This cauldron is so disposed that the wax, as it melts, flows through a pipe at the bottom into a large vat nearly filled with pure water. The vat is closely covered in order to prevent the heat from escaping before the wax is disengaged from the water. From this vat, it is conveyed into a vessel, the bottom of which is filled with small holes about the size of a grain of barley. Through these, it falls into streams upon a cylinder or roller, which constantly turns half immersed in water. This process gradually cools the wax and disengages it from the cylinder. From the last mentioned vessel, it is taken and spread upon large cloths, exposed some days to the air and sun. It is then heaped in a solid mass and allowed to remain 5 or 6 weeks, when it is again melted and passes through the same process I have already described. The third time the wax is melted, it is cast in molds to form cakes and again exposed to the sun and air to dry and harden, and is then considered fit for use. Wax burns with a very pure white light and with less smoke than tallow. Great quantities of yellow wax are imported from the Baltic countries, the Levant, and the Barbary states. How is wax made to imitate fruit, Mother? The fruit to be imitated is first half buried in clay. The edges of the clay and the remaining part of the fruit, which is exposed, must be oiled. A paste composed either of pulverized alabaster or plaster of Paris must be covered over it. This dries very quickly and forms a half mold. The other half is made in the same way. The two are joined with the exception of a little hole in which the melted wax is poured and shaken rapidly around. The mold is separated as soon as the wax cools, and the fruit is made perfect in its resemblance by being painted with the proper colors. This must be a very pretty amusement. I should like to make wax fruit. I shall not object when you are old enough to manage the whole process yourself, and will furnish you with the materials when that time arrives. Thank you, Mother. Is wax produced in any other way than by bees? Yes, several trees and plants yield wax. So you see, it may be considered both as a vegetable and animal substance. It is found very abundantly in some parts of South America, covering the trunk of the wax palm, a tree which grows to the great height of 180 feet and has leaves 20 feet long. The trunk of this tree is covered with a substance composed of 2/3 resin to 1 of wax. The wax shrub of Louisiana yields very pure wax, which is found encrusting the seeds. The bayberry shrub or plant grows about 1 foot high. From its berries is obtained a greenish colored wax, which is applied to many uses. This shrub grows in New England and in many other parts of North America. Will you tell me the materials of which candles are made besides wax? A candle is a cotton or linen wick, loosely twisted and covered either with spermaceti wax, or tallow. You already know from what spermaceti and wax are derived. Tallow is the fat of animals, but there are some trees which yield a substance resembling animal tallow, and which, with the addition of a little oil, answers the same purpose very well. Tallow candles should be made in the proportion of half sheep and half bullock's tallow. The lard of hogs is too soft for this purpose, being liable to swale and giving a thick black smoke attended with an ill smell. Tallow candles are of 2 kinds, dipped and molded. The first are in more common use than the latter. There are several kinds of wax candles. Some are called tapers and used in Catholic countries to illuminate churches, to burn in processions at funerals, ceremonies, etc. The Romans at first made their candles by dipping little strings in pitch or by surrounding them with wax. Afterwards, the wicks were made of papyrus, covered likewise with wax. Sometimes also the pith of little rushes was used to supply the place of wicks. Candles kept in flour or bran, it is said, increase hardness. You spoke, Mother, of trees which yield tallow. Where do they grow? The most valuable tree of the kind grows in China. It is called the tallow tree, and from the substance which it affords, the inhabitants make the greatest proportion of their candles. This tree grows to about the height of 15 or 20 feet. It has small leaves and a very smooth bark. The fruit is enclosed in a kind of pod and consists of 3 white grains, each of which encloses a little stone. These grains are collected and melted in the addition of little oil to soften them, and then made to candles. They yield, however, a smoky flame. Are there any other substitutes for candles besides lamps? Yes, several. The poor people of Great Britain strip the skin from rushes, except on one side, and dip the pitch into melted tallow. In Norway, Sweden, and many parts of North America, the poor people burn slips of pine wood or the knots and roots of pine trees, which contain a great quantity of fat resin. These roots yield a strong, bright flame, though the smoke is dense. They call them very properly candlewood. The French inhabitants of the island of Tortuga use slips of sandalwood, which are very fragrant and give a strong, clear flame of a greenish color. The natives of Otaheite use for candles the kernels of an oily nut, placed one above another on a round stick or skewer. The nuts supply the place of tallow and the skewer of a wick. You see, my dear, in these instances, as well as in many others, an exemplification of the old adage, necessity is the mother of invention. That's probably why we have no inventions. Good night, my child. What is honey? What countries afford the greatest abundance? What is wax? How is it prepared for use? How is wax made to imitate fruit? Do any plants yield wax? Of what are candles made? Describe the tallow tree. What are substituted in the place of candles and lamps in some countries? And the final conversation for today, conversation number 27. I have been trying to think of what air is, Mother, and am glad you have come to put an end to my doubts. I at first thought it might be wind without motion, but as I could not tell what wind was, I was as much at a loss as ever. I'm glad to find your thoughts occupied upon such a subject, and will try to define air to your satisfaction. To use the words of philosopher, air or the atmosphere is a thin, invisible fluid which everywhere surrounds the earth and reaches to a considerable height above it, and without which neither animals nor vegetables can live. Deprived of air, you would in a few moments cease to breathe. Wind is the air agitated and forced into action by heat and other causes which I do not think you are yet old enough to understand. In another year, you will perhaps have made sufficient progress in your studies to read natural philosophy to advantage, and then I will aid you in your researches without hesitation. There's a couple books in here I really want to take a look at. But you must remember that you will not be able to learn these things unless you apply steadily to the books now put into your hands. Every lesson learnt is a sure step forward in the path of wisdom and knowledge, but every lesson omitted carries you back, while at the same time the expansion of your understanding is doubly retarded. You cannot attain learning without pains and labor. We do not see the fruits and flowers in our garden arrive at perfection in a single day. On the contrary, they require much labor and many warm days and sunny hours to ripen them and perfect their growth. How many days you watched for the buds to blossom on your favorite rose tree, and how much joy you felt when you presented an opening flower to your father and me. It is with the same solicitude and hope that we watch the growing of your young mind. It will expand like your roses gradually, but much depends on your own efforts to assist in the culture. You are a rational being and endowed with both reason and reflection. Your rose tree, having only vegetable life, cannot of itself put forth leaves and flower, but you are required to do both as respects the cultivation of your talents and the improvement of your mind. Boy, that's nice, isn't it? That's like scripture regenerated. I will study indeed, dear mother. I will try to improve and become useful, if it be only to make you and my dear father happy, and fit myself to repay in part. For I know I never can wholly, for I know I never can wholly. Your care and solicitude for me while I was incapable of acting for myself. Will you tell me as much as I can now comprehend about the formations of clouds, mother? You are a good little girl, and while you so well profit by my instructions, I can refuse you no reasonable desire. Clouds are composed of water, absorbed by the sun's rays. These at first form vapors, and at length clouds, which when condensed and too heavy to remain supported in the atmosphere, fall either in the form of drops of rain, hail, or snow. Are there any countries where it never rains? Yes. Rain rarely falls in the northern parts of Chile, and in some parts of that country, never. In Egypt, rain is almost unknown. How then is the earth watered? Nothing can grow in those places where there is not water to support vegetation. Chile is not only well watered by rivers, but by frequent and heavy dews. Egypt owes its fertility to its only large river, the Nile, which rises in the Abyssinia. And owing to the heavy rains which fall there, annually overflows its banks like the Mississippi in our own country, and thus fertilizes and waters all Egypt. And Egyptians dig canals, also in various directions, to convey water from the river to distant parts of the country, and by means of aqueducts raise it to the higher grounds, and thus rarely suffer from drought. Snow must be frozen rain, I think, for though rain falls in tropical climates, snow is never seen there except on the summits of the highest mountains. Henry told me this the other day when I asked him why snow did not destroy the fruit and leaves of fig trees in winter, as it does here. The verdure of our trees, the verdure. You are right in supposing snow to be frozen or congealed rain. The formation of the flakes of snow is both curious and wonderful. When we see it descended from the heavens, let us think of the benevolent Creator of nature, who scattereth his snow like wool and his hoarfrost like the shining pearls. Who said that? The largest flakes of snow fall from... I do really want to know who said that. The largest flakes of snow fall from the highest clouds, for in their descent they meet and several unite in one. The lower the clouds, the smaller are the flakes of snow. Hail is more solid than snow and is supposed to be frozen by drops of rain, very suddenly frozen. Formed by drops of rain, very suddenly frozen. Several of these frozen drops adhering in their fall form hailstones. Violent hail storms are very ruinous in their efforts, destroying trees, vegetables, and whole fields of grain, injuring houses, and sometimes causing the death of cattle. Such terrific storms are not common in this country, and most thankful should we be that they are not. Hurricanes or windstorms are with us hardly known, though in the West Indies and some other places they are frequent. Earthquakes, which are caused by subterranean fires, are in some countries very frequent. Spain, Italy, Sicily, the northern parts of South America, and the adjacent islands have suffered severely from them. Whole cities with their inhabitants have been almost instantaneously buried in the earth. Whirlwinds are caused by the meeting of winds blowing from different points of the compass. Some philosophers have attributed the formation of waterspouts to whirlwinds. What are they, Mother? A collection of clouds rapidly condensed by the wind into a body of water, which descends either to the earth or upon the sea in the form of a pillar. This pillar, or immense body of water, is retained in its position by the pressure of the air upon its surface, which pressure in a short time lessens and the water spout breaks with great force, sometimes deluging considerable tracts of country. At sea, these are very dangerous to mariners, for if the spout bursts near a vessel, there is great danger that it will sink under the violence and weight of the water thrown upon it. Are water spouts frequent? No, they are rarely seen, and those people who have seen them kaput, and are classed under the head of phenomena, or the wonderful and uncommon appearances of nature. What causes the rainbow, Mother? At present you must remain ignorant of the philosophical cause which produces the beautiful rainbow, for the same reason that you can at present understand very little of the nature of light, air, colors, and clouds. The most simple reason I can give you for its appearance is the shining of the sun's rays upon the drops of falling rain. The rainbow always appears opposite to the sun and is not seen unless your back is towards the luminary. I sometimes since spoke to you of colors and their creation, which you no doubt remember. You may read Thomson's description of the rainbow here. Here is the book and place. Meantime, refracted from the yon eastern cloud bestriding earth, the grand ethereal bow shoots up immense, and every hue unfolds in fair proportion, running into red to where the violet fades into the sky. Mother, the two last lines don't rhyme. Mother, the two last lines remind me of a passage I learned in one of Henry's books after you told me that black was not a color and the white was composed of all other colors blended or mixed. I was looking through a prism, and my brother gave me the book because he said if I learned the lines, I should remember the order in which the colors appear when separated. Well, let me hear them, my dear. Of parent colors, first the flaming red, sprung vivid forth, the tawny orange next, and next delicious yellow, by whose side fell the kind beams of all refreshing green, then the pure blue that swells the autumnal skies, ethereal played, and then of sadder hue emerged the deepened indigo, as when the heavy-skirted evening droops with frost, while the last gleamings of refracted light died in the fainting violet away. Died into white, Mother, for all looked white below violet. Are not the lines pretty? I am much obliged to my mother for giving them, I am much obliged to my brother for giving them to me. I am glad you are sensible, of Henry's kindness and attention to you. He is always obliging and ready both to assist in your studies and promote your pleasures, not only because he is good-tempered, but because he loves you, and he sees you have a desire to improve your mind, and as he is older and more sensible, of the importance of acquiring knowledge than yourself, he wishes to encourage you by all the assistance in his power. You can only repay his attention by affectionate and kind manners towards him, and by rendering him every little service in your power. Good night, my child. Practical questions. What is air? What are clouds? When condensed, what do clouds form? Are there any countries where rain is unknown? Where are they situated? What is snow? What is hail? By what are earthquakes caused? And in what countries are they most frequent? What are water spouts? In what situation must you be placed in order to see a rainbow? This is Dr. Annette Feravich. We have completed another day of the classroom, another reading room. We will come back here on Tuesday for conversations number, what is that, early birds? What is that Roman numeral, early birds? 10, 25, 6, 7, 8. Conversation number 28. Thanks so much for joining me here. I hope that I was not off screen. I don't think I was while reading. Thanks so much for joining me here on day 254 here in the classroom. It is October 2nd, and we are, thank goodness, on our 4 days off. I've got some moccasins that need to be finished. That is for sure. It's getting chilly. Thanks for joining me here, where we in the classroom make your mind, your body, and your spirit healthier. Thanks so much.